Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we talk about what is behind the latest US government shutdown and how it turned into one of the most heated political standoffs in recent American history. This shutdown is not just about politics. It is about real people, real lives, and the very system that keeps America running. When Washington stops, everything else starts to feel the impact. From federal employees missing paychecks to millions of Americans losing access to services, this shutdown has become a symbol of how divided the government has become and how much that division costs the people. The story begins with a fight over spending. Congress failed to reach an agreement on the federal budget, and when that happens, the law requires most government operations to stop, agencies shut down, programs pause, and workers are either sent home or forced to work without pay. It sounds unbelievable that the most powerful country in the world can grind to a halt over political differences. But this has become almost a routine crisis that happens every few years as parties fight over priorities, taxes, and government size. The House of Representatives, controlled by Republicans, wanted deeper spending cuts. They argued that federal spending was out of control and that the only way to prevent economic disaster was to cut funding to certain social and environmental programs. They also pushed for more money for border security, defense, and tax reliefs for businesses. On the other side, the Senate, controlled by Democrats, rejected those cuts, saying they would harm working families, education, healthcare, and climate programs. They wanted a clean funding bill without controversial policy riders or extreme cuts that would cripple key departments. Both sides stood firm, and as midnight approached, the funding expired and the government officially shut down. As always, the effects were immediate. Airports started facing delays as air traffic control staff thinned, national parks and monuments closed. Visitors were turned away, social security offices were limited, and small business loans stopped being processed. Federal workers, especially those living paycheck to paycheck, suddenly had no income. Many turned to food banks or emergency savings just to survive. For most Americans, it felt like the same movie playing again and again, where politicians fight and regular citizens pay the price. Behind the scenes, this shutdown was also a reflection of deep fractures inside the Republican Party. The Speaker of the House was under immense pressure from far-right members who demanded strict spending limits and policy changes on immigration and social issues. They threatened to remove him if he tried to compromise. This internal chaos made negotiations almost impossible. On the Democratic side, the president and his team refused to give in, saying that yielding now would only encourage more shutdown politics in the future. This deadlock created a situation where nobody wanted to move first because political image mattered more than progress. The media described it as a game of political chicken, with both sides speeding toward a collision, neither willing to turn the wheel. As days passed, the effects spread across the country. Government contracts stalled, veterans faced delays in benefits, passport applications piled up, and disaster relief efforts slowed. The economy started feeling pressure too, as uncertainty hit financial markets. Investors hate instability, and Washington was giving them a lot of it. Economists warned that a long shutdown could damage growth, reduce consumer confidence, and cost billions in lost productivity. Every week of shutdown adds weight to the shoulders of the economy. Small businesses, depending on government clients, were left hanging. Federal employees in every state waited for answers, and even though essential services like border patrol and air traffic control continued, morale was low because workers knew their paychecks were frozen. Politically, the blame game was in full swing. Republicans accused Democrats of reckless spending and ignoring the growing national debt. Democrats accused Republicans of political hostage taking, saying they were using American livelihoods as leverage for their agenda. Each side gave press conferences and statements claiming they were fighting for the people, but the people were the ones suffering the most. As frustration grew, polls showed public trust in Congress falling even further and approval ratings for both parties sinking. Beyond the numbers, there is a deeper issue. The American government has built a habit of governing through crisis instead of long-term planning. Every few months, there is another standoff over the budget, debt ceiling, or federal funding. The shutdown becomes a tool for negotiation, a weapon to extract political concessions. But each time it happens, faith in democracy erodes a little more. Americans begin to wonder if their leaders can still function for the common good, or if politics has become a permanent battlefield. This shutdown also affected America's image abroad. Allies and partners watched as Washington struggled to keep its own government running. In a world where the United States promotes stability and leadership, this kind of dysfunction raises doubts. Global media covered the shutdown not just as domestic drama, but as a sign of internal weakness, especially when international commitments and foreign aid are delayed by lack of funding. The message to the world was clear. America cannot afford to keep turning itself off and on like a broken machine. In the White House, the president met with advisors and economic experts to assess damage. Contingency plans were rolled out to minimize impact, but without Congress authorizing new funds, the administration was limited in what it could do. The president addressed the nation, urging lawmakers to act, saying that this is not a partisan issue, it is an American issue. But in Congress, the echo chambers were too loud to hear reason. Every statement turned into a soundbite. Every vote became a political weapon. The ripple effect spread to every corner of the country. From New York to Texas, from California to Florida, Americans saw the shutdown play out in real time. Federal websites stopped updating, helplines went silent, museums closed, research projects were paused, and even military families faced uncertainty. It was not just about Washington anymore. It was about the everyday American trying to pay bills and plan life while their government was asleep at the wheel. Experts pointed out that this shutdown was avoidable. Both sides knew for months that the deadline was approaching, but instead of negotiating early, they waited until the final hours, using it as political theater. Each side wanted to appear strong to their supporters, but that strength came at the cost of stability. Behind closed doors, lobbyists and party strategists calculated the political cost and benefit of dragging the crisis out. It was not just a budget fight. It was a chess game where every move was about the next election. As days turned into weeks, the pressure mounted. Protests began near Capitol Hill. Federal workers marched demanding their pay. Families gathered outside offices demanding action. The media broadcast stories of single mothers missing rent, soldiers working without pay, scientists losing funding, and students missing financial aid checks. The shutdown had turned into a moral test for Washington, showing how disconnected the political class had become from the public they serve. The longer it lasted, the more cracks appeared in both parties. Moderate lawmakers started to break ranks, calling for temporary deals or continuing resolutions. Anything to get paychecks flowing again. But extremists on both ends rejected those solutions, saying compromise was weakness. The result was paralysis. Every time one proposal came up, another group blocked it, and America stayed stuck in the middle. Economic analysts compared the cost of the shutdown to a natural disaster, saying every day of closure burned millions of dollars that taxpayers would never get back. Yet politicians continued their press briefings, acting as if victory was near. Both sides waited for the other to blink. And as history shows, it usually ends the same way, with a temporary patch That delays the problem, not solves it. Many Americans no longer cared who was right or wrong. They just wanted their government back. Workers needed paychecks. Families needed services. Businesses needed contracts. But Washington was trapped in a loop of power politics, driven by media cycles and election fears. The shutdown had become a symbol of dysfunction, not democracy. As international observers commented, the United States looked divided, exhausted, and politically overheated. The constant battles over budgets and debt ceilings were making long-term global commitments harder to maintain. Allies asked if America could still lead when it could barely govern itself. Diplomats delayed agreements. Military logistics slowed. Humanitarian programs paused. Research institutions halted operations, all because lawmakers refused to agree on numbers. The irony was clear. While politicians argued about wasteful spending, the shutdown itself was one of the most expensive political maneuvers in modern times, costing billions without achieving real savings. The damage was not just financial, it was emotional. National morale dropped. Public confidence hit new lows. Civil servants who once believed in their mission began to question whether their work mattered. In the end, the question was not just what caused the shutdown, but what it said about America's future. Could a nation built on compromise still find unity when politics had become tribal? Could Congress remember that governance is about service, not spectacle? Experts warn that if this pattern continues, every budget season could turn into another crisis, eroding stability at home and influence abroad. Eventually, under mounting pressure from the public and business community, lawmakers began to soften their tone. Backroom negotiations restarted with whispers of short-term deals. The president held late-night calls with party leaders urging resolution. Slowly, the outlines of a temporary funding agreement appeared. Both sides claimed small victories, but everyone knew the truth. The underlying issues were still there, waiting for the next deadline to explode again. The shutdown finally ended, but the damage remained. The missed paychecks, the unpaid bills, the lost trust, and the growing cynicism about Washington's ability to function. The cycle was over, but not broken. Analysts described it as another warning shot for a democracy that is losing its sense of balance. A government that cannot keep itself open cannot expect to lead the world. What was behind the latest U.S. government shutdown was not just a fight over budgets. It was a clash of ideologies, a crisis of governance, and a reflection of a deeper divide within American society. It showed how fragile the system can be when politics replaces purpose, when winning matters more than working together, and when public service becomes political theater for the cameras. For millions of Americans, the lesson was harsh. Politics is not an abstract game. It affects paychecks, safety, education, and stability. Every shutdown is a reminder that democracy demands cooperation, not constant confrontation. Leaders in both parties promised reforms, new budget rules, automatic triggers to avoid future shutdowns. But whether those promises will hold remains to be seen. History suggests otherwise, because in Washington, memory is short and ambition is long. As America moves forward, the next months will test whether lawmakers can learn from this, or if they will once again push the nation to the edge for political gain. Economists predict that recovery from the shutdown's impact will take time. Confidence must be rebuilt, federal projects need restarting, and workers must regain their footing. But beyond numbers, the deeper repair is moral, restoring faith in government and showing that leadership is still possible. The truth behind the latest U.S. government shutdown goes far deeper than budgets or political speeches. It exposes a system strained by polarization, mistrust, and endless power struggles between parties. Both sides claim to fight for the people, but their actions show a government paralyzed by ego and election fear. Lawmakers play blame games while citizens pay the real cost. From frozen paychecks to delayed benefits, the human toll is undeniable. The shutdown is not just a pause in government operations. It is a reflection of how disconnected leadership has become from reality. Every argument, every delay, every failed negotiation chips away at faith in democracy. What should be a debate about national priorities has turned into a spectacle of division where compromise is seen as weakness and service is overshadowed by strategy. America is facing not just a budget crisis, but a leadership crisis. If this continues, the cycle of shutdowns will become the new normal, with every round pushing citizens further from trust and closer to frustration. The only way forward is accountability, transparency, and courage to put country before politics. Because when Washington shuts down, it is not just buildings that close, it is the heartbeat of the nation that slows. In every household, in every state, people watch this crisis unfold, wondering how something so avoidable became so destructive. The truth is simple. When politics stops listening to people, it stops serving them. This shutdown was not inevitable. It was chosen by those in power. And until accountability returns, it could happen again and again. So, as Washington reopens and business resumes, the real question is not whether the government is back in action, but whether the leaders have learned anything at all. Because if they haven't, then this story will repeat the same way next year and the year after until Americans decide enough is enough. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay aware, and remember, democracy only works when its people demand better from those who lead it.